today I have a question for you. Have you ever stopped to wonder what humility truly means in the context of communication? It's not what you think. It's not about holding back, being quieter, maybe making ourselves less. No. Or is it actually the opposite? Could it be that humility in communication doesn't mean less, but in fact, so much more? In our conversations, we often think that humility is involving diminishing ourselves, that we need to take a step back, almost as if we were fading into the background. What if, instead, humility is about being fully present, about filling the space in a way that invites the other person to fill it with us? I want you to imagine a scene where somebody is, making their point heard, speaking down on you, and instead of stepping back, you just fill the space in a way that invites the other to fill it with us. With other words, we don't go into fight or flight. We don't go into freeze. We don't go into anything else but staying fully present in who we are. An expansive presence that is open, warm, and deeply connected. I wonder how that would be. In this video, we're going to explore how humility isn't a retreat, but an invitation to engage with others in a way that's open, accepting, and profoundly authentic. Humility allows us to be fully present in each moment, appreciating the richness and the fullness of every interaction, and offering a safe space for true connection to flourish. And I know that some of you now may say, but Sonia, if somebody really comes at me, I need to keep myself safe. What about the other person coming at you because they are not safe? And now you open a safe space. We'll discuss how humility can transform the way we communicate, bridging gaps and building lasting connections that bring us closer. So, let's take this journey together into the art of humble communication. Let's start by clearing up some common misconceptions about humility. You see, when people hear the word humility, they often think it means making yourself smaller, holding back, or almost erasing yourself to let the other center stage. It can be sometimes seen as a kind of self-effacing gesture, like trying to blend into the background until you're completely invisible. I'm guilty of that. But I've learned true humility is not about diminishing yourself. It is not about pretending you have no thoughts or feelings of your own. In fact, if humility were simply about being less, it would limit our ability to truly connect with others. And that's not what we're aiming for here. Instead, let's think about humility as an openness and a fullness. The quality of being fully present, of being ready to accept things as they are. So in systemic work, we often use a simple yes, or a simple I see you, or a simple I acknowledge you. It allows a space to open for both parties. Humility allows us to listen, not just to hear someone's words, but to feel their intentions and emotions too. So when somebody comes at you and they are sort of making their point heard in a very loud way, it's the key of not listening to what is said the very loud way, but to listen into that space that it comes from. Their insecurity, their fear. And when you hear that, and when you recognize that, it allows in you the willingness to show up fully, without the need to control or impose, but allowing genuine communication to take place. Humility is about being fully receptive. No, I'm not talking about being receptive to the screaming and whatever else comes with it, but fully receptive of where they are at and where you are at. And acknowledging the helplessness in the other person and in you. It means giving ourselves the space to experience each moment as it comes. And when we acknowledge our own sense of helplessness or our own sense of vulnerability, this allows the moment to unfold naturally without forcing our agenda into it. So when we approach a conversation with humility, we're saying, I'm here for you. I'm open to you. And I am ready to share this moment. The other person may not be ready because they might be wanting to scare you off. But let's continue this conversation. One of the most beautiful aspects of humility is that it's an experience of fullness. It is about experiencing that which is underneath this open hostility. Imagine that each moment of humility is so complete that nothing can be added to it except the next moment, which is just as full and just as rich. In humility, every interaction has a certain kind of depth. It's new and alive, and its own way is perfect. When we're truly humble, we bring ourselves fully into each moment, experiencing it as a gift. You may learn something that you didn't know before by just staying in that moment and looking at that moment. And with every new moment, we're invited to start fresh, to see things anew. and to open ourselves up to whatever is happening now. It's about embracing the fullness of now, allowing it to be exactly what it is, and then letting it pass. Doesn't mean we have to hold on to it, as we welcome the next moment, just as open and ready as we were before. I know it sounds a little bit like a little bit of theory at the moment, but let's stay with this a little longer and just try and allow yourself to absorb this. So, how does the idea of humility as fullness impact our communication? I want you just to see where you stay present. There is an interaction that's happening that's maybe not so good. And instead of retreating, instead of fighting back, instead of going into freeze mode, when we approach a conversation with humility, you're not just hearing the words, and that's the key. You're fully receiving the other person. With other words, you are able to interact with their pain as well as your pain. And you're interacting with the vulnerability of both people. And that is when we are tuned into the richness of the moment. And we're able to respond from a place of genuine understanding. Imagine that every word, every gesture, every pause carries with it a depth of meaning. When we are humble, we're able to see and appreciate that depth. We experience the fullness of each moment by being fully receptive to what the other person brings. That means not running away from our own vulnerability, acknowledging our own vulnerability and acknowledging the vulnerability of the other person that brings about whatever this moment is. We allow ourselves to be moved by their words, understanding where they're coming from, their intentions, their emotions. Understand where they're coming from, but also having an understanding of where you are at. And in doing so, we create a space for real connection. To experience the fullness of each moment with others, we first need to find a state of inner calm. And the first time you have this and you go into this experience, you may want to just focus on, where am I at now? So you need to start by grounding yourself in a quiet mind, a calm heart, which allows us to approach others openly. My suggestion would be to practice this in your mind's eye with past experiences, where you practice going into that inner calm, reclaiming who you are, your vulnerability, but also how you view the situation on hand and how you would want to respond to it in a calm way. I like to think of this as recollect calm, a place where your thoughts settle and we're fully present, ready to engage without the chatter, of our own minds taking center stage. And when we're grounded and calm, we're less likely to jump to conclusions or let our emotions react to us. I've actually practiced this in a very, very volatile situation where the other person said to me, "Why are you not reacting to me the way I need you to react to me?" And my only response was, "I get where you're coming from." And the response was, "But I want you to." And I said, "I am hearing you." So there was no fuel for the other person to continue what they were doing. And in that calm, we create a steady foundation for communication, a space where we can genuinely connect. So in that situation that I am sharing with you, the other person was not wanting to connect for whatever reason. But me holding my calm got the other person to think, hang on, what is it that I really want? Do I really want to disconnect, or do I want to connect, but I want to be heard, I want to be seen, I want to be acknowledged? Oh my word, she heard me, she saw me, she acknowledged. Think about the many ways we rush through conversations, caught up in our own thoughts or our own responses. So when we're so used to getting I am upset with you and you are upset with me, when that is our normal response, and this then changes, the whole relationship changes. So when we're in a state of recollect calm, we become more than just observers or speakers. We become active participants, fully immersed in the experience of sharing the moment. Those are healing moments. Humility in communication is about living in the moment, letting each moment be just as it is. In a way, it's like taking each moment as it comes with no need to change it or to rush it. And I can tell you that when I had this experience with a person that I was sharing, there was a shift. There was now I'm heard, now I'm seen. I can now have a different approach. And that person shifted to humility, to their vulnerability, because it was already seen. They no longer needed to hide it. So when we approach life and conversations with humility, we allow ourselves to experience a kind of joy in simply being present, a ceaseless taking of everything as it is. There's no need to change it. A ceaseless joy about it all. The joy is we love each other. We want to communicate with each other. We do want to connect with each other. An endless joy about it. Imagine what it's like to approach each moment as something fresh, something alive. There's joy in that openness, in seeing every interaction as unique and full. It's a mindset that brings us a special kind of liveliness. Liveliness into our lives, allowing us to see things as it is for the first time, over and over again. So what it allows us is to actually be aware of what is really going on, instead of just running over it and creating one moment after the next and increasing the disconnection. So when we are fully alive in the moment, we bring that joy into our conversations, into our active listening, of speaking, and the simple joy of we get each other. So it does open that space for us to connect, truly connect. So one of the most profound ways we can practice humility in communication is through active listening. So passive listening is they can talk, not taking it in. Active listening is not just hearing the words, because the words are just what comes out. What is underneath those words? What is it that the other wants to communicate, truly communicate? Where is the vulnerability? So what that requires of us is listening with an open heart. Just opening your heart and taking in all the vulnerability that the other person is now exposing. So it's listening with our whole body and not just our ears. And when we do that, we set aside our need to respond immediately or to make a conversation about ourselves, because it's not about us. The other person is trying to communicate. And what the other person is trying to communicate has nothing to do with you. So don't take it on. Don't make it personal. Just stay within yourself and instead focus completely on the other person. When we actively listen, we're not just waiting for our turn to speak. Because yes, we have a response and we maybe want to respond, but responding immediately may be just responding your need. And then the other person does not feel heard, does not feel seen, does not feel acknowledged. So just listen actively without the need to respond immediately. So we're absorbing, we're understanding, and we're empathizing. We're giving the other person a space to be fully heard. Humility in this sense means recognizing that their experience, their words, are just as important as our own. And this is the key. The other person feels less than, feels I'm not being heard. And when you give them that space, you show them a willingness to take their perspective, to see things through their eyes, even if it's only for a moment. This open-hearted listening fosters trust. It tells the other person, I'm here with you, and I'm giving you my full attention. You matter. Our relationship matters. And there's something beautiful about that. About being able to let go of your own agendas and to simply be present with someone else without judgment, without the need to control the outcome. no matter what you may think about it. Just sharing that space between us. Just imagine if we could bring this fullness, this open-hearted joy to every conversation. How would our relationships change? How would our connections deepen? When we approach others with this kind of presence, we're not just communicating, we're building bridges, because that space that now opens up becomes a bridging space. We're creating spaces where true connection can flourish and where each person feels valued. You're not valuing yourself because of what somebody else says. You stay in your value. You stay with your open heart. And with that, you value the other person. In humility, we find a continuous creative movement. A way of being with others that's endlessly joyful and endlessly fresh. So let's carry this forward, practicing humility, not as something that makes us less, but as something that allows us to experience more connection, more joy, and more presence with each and every moment. Bringing awareness to that moment. Humility in communication is not just a state we reach once and stay in. Rather, it's an ongoing, continuous act of surrender. Oh yeah, this is another one, the surrender. Surrender, again, is not about being less, but surrendering to the moment. Surrendering to the question, what is really happening here now? What is really going on now? This is a moment that allows me to either give in to the fall down or to surrender to the moment and say, and what can I create from here? So think about what it means to truly surrender to each moment. It is not about giving up, but letting go of our preconceived notions, our judgments, our need to control the conversation. What are you going to lose if the other person controls the conversation and you're just coming into awareness and you learn more? Go into it with curiosity. I wonder what's really going on here. In humility, we're constantly releasing, letting go, let the other person show their vulnerability, allowing the moment to unfold naturally. When we surrender to each moment in conversation, we're creating a space where we can connect with the other person without any barriers. We're saying, I'm here, I'm open, and I'm ready to receive you just as you are. You are showing me a side. You are vulnerable with me when you explode with me. And I'll receive you just as you are. Doesn't mean that I have to become you. It doesn't mean that I have to engage with your vulnerability. So when we're going in with that, I see you, we're not taking it on. And this is really what the key is here. This kind of surrender doesn't diminish us. It actually enriches the experience because I can stay fully in the me. And when I'm fully in the me, it allows us to gauge more fully, more authentically. I don't have to go into pretending what I am not. Humility is, in a way, the ultimate surrender to continuously creative movement. That's the beauty. When we approach conversation with humility, we're not trying to steer them in a specific direction. Instead, we're flowing with them, letting the conversation take a life of its own. And as you know, after every storm comes a calmness. So when we are fully present in the storm, we can then also be fully present in the calmness that comes after. It's about becoming one with the rhythm of the exchange, trusting that where it goes is exactly where it needs to go. Imagine yourself in a conversation that moves like a river. You're not fighting the current, you're simply flowing with it, letting it carry you both forward. In humility, we recognize that we don't need to control every word or guide every thought. We can allow the conversation to evolve naturally, bringing us closer to understanding and connection. And there's a beauty in that. Letting go of the need to impose ourselves and instead embracing the journey of co-creating each moment. When we approach communication with humility, and now that we understand that humility is staying fully present in the self, it becomes more than just an exchange of words. It becomes an act of creation. In each moment, we're building something together with the other person, something new, something unique. We're not just talking, we're creating a shared space, a shared experience. Every conversation we have, every interaction is an opportunity to co-create. This is the key. Every conversation we have, every interaction is an opportunity to co-create. We're not trying to dominate or control. We're simply participating in a process that brings forth something beyond ourselves. Humility allows us to step into that creative space, to let go of our need to be right or prove something, and instead to focus on what we are building together. In a way, we're saying, let's see what we can create together in this moment. In the end, humility is what enables us to make each conversation an act of creation. Isn't that a beautiful thought? It's what allows us to bring our whole selves forward while still holding space for the other person to do the same. It's what helps us find the beauty and potential in every word, every pause, and every shared silence. Humility in communication isn't about... I thank you for sharing this space with me. I know it's a lot to take in, especially if it's a new thought, a new idea. Thank you. for being in the space with me. I would really appreciate it if you like, maybe subscribe, share with others what you've learned here. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video, where I will take it into discussing about peace. Wishing you an amazing day. Until next time, bye for now.